What's going on, guys? So, we're going to be doing something a little bit different today. And that is because about a week ago now, I got a tweet on Twitter, of course. Where else would you get tweets? But I had someone tweet out to me, and at KF Shuffle says, "How can I stop an all physically offensive team? Need help with a team build for this." So, I thought I would give it a try and see what we could do. So, KF Shuffle, here's what my thoughts were. Since you said we're going to try and stop an all physically offensive team, obviously I have no details on what types, what specific Pokemon, other than the fact that obviously it is physically offensive. So what I kind of did is I threw together a quick team on Showdown, and you can kind of see it along the top here, but I'll go through each step, and then I actually have a friend of mine who's going to help me out. We're going to do a little mock battle and see how well it works out. So when I went ahead and built this team, since you said you wanted to stop physically offensive Pokemon, what I kind of thought was Intimidate. Like, why not? Let's go ahead and Intimidate and lower attack that way and kind of slow down those teams. So I built the team around a couple concepts. So the first principle, obviously, is to get as many Intimidators on the team as possible. The second concept is where and when possible, I have options to burn any of the attackers, because, again, the burn status actually lowers physical attack as well. So you're going to see things like Scald, Will-O-Wisp, stuff like that to kind of inflict burns. And the third kind of principle, I guess you could say, the third kind of principle that I built the team around is being able to swap in and out as easily as possible. So a lot of the team members actually were chosen because of their access to things like U-Turn or Volt Switch or things of that nature, Baton Pass, stuff like that. Because the beauty of Intimidate is that, I guess the beauty or the drawback, however you want to look at it, but the thing with Intimidate is obviously it only impacts when the Pokemon is swapped in. So the concept here is things that, like, let's say we have Landorus here. You can kind of see Landorus. One has Intimidate, but also comes with U-Turn, which gives us an option to hit with U-Turn, swap out for another Intimidator, and get a second stat drop as well. So let's do a quick run through of the team. Now, this one's probably about my third iteration of this team, so I'll walk you through what I did a little differently each and every time. So, obviously, we have Landorus here. Landorus comes with Intimidate, so I went ahead and put Landorus in 1 because he comes with Intimidate, 2 because he has access to U-Turn, and 3 because he also has access to Stealth Rock, which I think is really useful because what I think you'll find is when you do a lot of stat drops on Pokemon, they're just going to swap out. So there's no real way to, let's say, take a offensive attacker or like a really heavy, kind of Pokemon, like a heavy hitter, and drop its stat by 2-3 attacks, and it's not going to swap out. Like, this is just not going to happen. They're going to swap out once their stats drop, which is the same reason why you can always kind of predict things using, like, Draco Meteor, I'm drawing a blank, but things like Draco Meteor, where it's going to see 2 special attack drops, you always see those attackers swap out, usually the next turn. So same kind of concept. As we inflict more Intimidates, we're going to see more swaps from the opponent's team, which means Stealth Rocks will come into play more and more frequently. So we did start off with Landorus, Rock and U-Turn, Stealth Rock, Earthquake, and Knockoff. Earthquake's there for the stab, Stealth Rock and U-Turn we kind of just covered. So U-Turns to get the extra Intimidates, so as many Intimidates as possible. Stealth Rock to kind of wear it down. Earthquake for just a nice stab that's really not as resisted as a lot of moves are in the game, but Earthquake's really well known for not being resisted and getting off a nice, well-powered stab. And Knockoff's also on there to help cripple a lot of the offensive teams, because a lot of not just physically offensive teams, but let's say like hyper offense, which is really big in the competitive scene today. A lot of those hyper offensive teams are based around getting Pokemon out and having, let's say, the items and whatnot to power them up. Things like Life Orb, things like Assault Vest, you'll see a lot of times in competitive. The choice items, which I feel like I haven't seen a lot in Sun and Moon, but I know back in like X and Y and Oris and generations before that, you'd see a lot of choice specs, choice bands, whatnot, and choice scarf, of course. So that's why we went ahead and start off with Landorus. So we have Landorus Theron. He is an adamant because, again, we want to kind of get his attack up. So the thought is to lower the other attack and kind of dish out a couple nice earthquakes or a knockoff, really cripple out the other Pokemon and kind of force that switch so Stealth Rocks can wear in. Next up, we have Arcanine. So Arcanine's, again, playing off of the whole Burn and Intimidate piece. So what I kind of wish was that Arcanine knew a swapping move. Like if Arcanine knew Volt Switch instead of Wild Charge, it would have been on there in a heartbeat. But we do have Will-O-Wisp, we do have Extreme Speed, Flare Blitz, and Wild Charge. So I feel like other than Will-O-Wisp, this is pretty much a standard Arcanine set. Because you do see a lot of E-Speed, a lot of Flare Blitz, and a lot of Wild Charges on Arcanines. Again, when we have the Intimidate, and this one comes with leftovers because, of course, it's going to be taking a lot of recoil damage with the Flare Blitz and with the Wild Charge. Next up, we have Gyarados. This one, of course, is Mega Gyarados, so that way you get access to the Intimidate. And it is going to come with Crunch, Iron Head, Stone Edge for stabs, and then Scald there. So Scald's really important, of course, because it gets the burn off as well. So again, we're going to drop in another Intimidator, another chance to burn, all that kind of good stuff. And then I have these three Pokemon here. So we have Wobbuffet, Cofagrigus, and Umbreon. Now, I kind of picked those because in the initial setup that I had of the team, I tried to do as many Intimidators as possible. So the first setup, we actually had 5 Intimidators. I can't quite remember off the top of my head what they were because it's been like a stretch and I've been doing a lot of different Pokemon stuff. But we did have about 4 or 5 different Intimidators, which was really nice for getting the Intimidates off. But what I seem to find, what I kind of really tended to find, is that even though your question's kind of like what is the best way rather to stop like physically offensive teams, I think you'll find that most teams are not going to be 6, physically offensive Pokemon, just because all someone really needs to do is set up like one wall and Toxic Stall out and kind of wear things down like that. But most teams, before I lose my train of thought, so most teams are going to be like a mix. So instead of putting in all Intimidators and just stalling out these all physically offensive teams, I kind of went for a little bit of diversity just to be more realistic to the game. So next we have Wobbuffet in here. And Wobbuffet I really put in just for one reason, and that's because of Shadow Tag. So one of the big things is obviously your core is going to be Landorus, Arcanine, and Gyarados. Bringing in the attacks, bringing in the intimidates, things like that. But what are you going to do when you have something that can't be handled by that core? And that's where Wobbuffet really comes in with Shadow Tag. So one of my big things when I first made it, or first made this team, was I knew like right off the bat that I wanted a Shadow Tagger, and really the only 2 Shadow Tag Pokemon that are ever used in today's competitive are going to be Wobbuffet or Corellia. I went for Wobbuffet just because he's like an old classic. Corellia gives you a bit more options, but it's sort of like Wobbuffet's the OG, so I went ahead and went with Wobbuffet first. So we have our Focus Sash Wobbuffet, rocking out also with Shadow Tag, of course. And then after that, just the classic Counter, Destiny Bond, Encore, Mirror Coat. So this one comes out because when you come across any special attackers or something along those lines that aren't going to be handled by Intimidate, this is where you can kind of trap that Pokemon or trap one that's going to really do a lot of damage to your core there. And this way you can trap them and hopefully take them out with Destiny Bond, if not like Mirror Coat, Counter, things like that. And Encore, of course, is there to kind of trap setup Pokemon. Just that way you don't have to worry about, let's say a bunch of stat boosting moves or anything like that, and then they come out and attack and sweep your team. Because unfortunately, Landorus, Arcanine, and Gyarados are not exactly your defensive, powerhouses. And then, for our last two, we'll rock them out real quick, because then I want to show you guys a battle. So next we have Cofagrigus. The reason I put in Cofagrigus is because of his stats. So Cofagrigus comes with a good defensive and special defensive stats, which is something, again, the Intimidators really don't have. Because the way the Intimidators are kind of working is to lower the opponent's attack enough that you can get through with your own attacks. But Cofagrigus is here for a nice switch in. And it really came down to this and Dusknoir as my options here. The reason I went with Cofagrigus... And I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. I keep saying Cofagrigus, but I feel like it's Cofagrigus. I don't know, whatever. I'll call it Cofagrigus. But the reason I went ahead and went with him as opposed to Dusknoir is because of Mummy as an ability. Because the other thing is, on a lot of these hyper-offensive teams, you will see other Intimidators. It's just such a good ability, and it's so prevalent, I think, in the games, that it's just bound to happen. So this way, not only can you kind of soak in some of those hits, both defensively and special defensively, but you can also take out some troublesome abilities that might be giving you issues. And again, you have Will-O-Wisp on this one. You have another Destiny Bond user in case you need that, in case Wobbuffet goes down. So if you've already used your Wobbuffet and you need another, let's say like Special Attacker Trap, something like that. And then we also have Hex and Magic Coat. So Magic Coat's there to bounce back a lot of the moves that would wear down your team normally. So things like Stealth Rock Spikes and whatnot. So any of the entry hazards, all that good stuff. And Hex, of course, is there because, if you noticed, we have all these Pokemon that can deal fire... I want to say fire damage, but what I meant to say is can deal like a burn condition. So this way, when you run across those things, you have a chance to take them out. So hopefully at this point they would get worn down by Stealth Rocks, and then you have a chance to Hex and deal damage to a burnt Pokemon that's already getting hit with Stealth Rocks, is already kind of worn down and stuff like that. And then it being part Ghost as well also protects you against any kind of Rapid Spinners, which will play a big role, especially if we're leaning on Stealth Rock so much for damage. And last but not least, we have Umbreon. So Umbreon actually was the last addition I put on this team, and that was because I did probably about 5 or 6 playthroughs before I put Umbreon on, and I really noticed that this team suffers from like a lack of recovery, and not just from the standpoint of like they don't have recovery moves, but from the standpoint of a lot of them have lower defenses. So they would get worn down a lot because obviously we have to swap in quite a bit to get Intimidates off. So you might have to swap in, 2-3 times in 2 or 3 turns. So you might be over here U-turn, 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 things of that nature, just to get all those Intimidates and things like that. And if you have to soak up the hits, or if you have to, let's say, go through entry hazards of your own, things like that, it wears that core down quite a bit. So Umbreon's in here, so we have the classic kind of Wish Pass. So we do have Wish, Baton Pass, Protect, and Sucker Punch. And then I went ahead and gave him Darkinium Z. That way, hopefully, we can get a nice quality Z move off in the off chance that we do need it, or in the off chance that we run across like a Psychic type or anything along those lines. And we also have Synchronize as well, so if we get status in our own right, hopefully we can return it. But that's the team. Hopefully it works out with your question. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over. So there's going to be a quick jump cut, and then I actually have a battle video for you guys of us trying out this team. I do want to give a quick shout out to my friend Daniel, who helped me out with this battle video. He actually had not seen the team, so I've already recorded the battle, of course. But he had not seen the team, and all I really told him was to go ahead and set up a team with like just offense in mind. And I did specify, I will say I did specify physical offense, so I told him, hey, I'm trying out something new. Go ahead and set up like the most physically demanding offense that you can come up with. So I am going to cut away. There's going to be no commentary on it because I just want you guys to kind of watch it and see what you think. But if you guys like this kind of thing where, I get a question asked and I build a team around it, stuff like that, I'm actually really, now that I've done it, I'm actually really, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess I would say, like, I'm really interested in doing this kind of thing in the future because I want to try and get more and more into competitive battling. So this really helps out because I can tinker with different teams and I can see different strategies and stuff like that, and I can see kind of what works, what doesn't work, and whatnot. So if you guys are interested in this kind of stuff, hit the like button for me down below, and also let me know in the comments. And I might try and do maybe one of these once a week, once every other week, something like that, just to kind of keep it interesting. And of course, if you have any team ideas or any questions you want to figure out together, go ahead and send me a tweet or let me know send me a tweet or let me know down in the comments, and we can kind of figure it out. Okay. But with that being said, guys, I hope you like the team, and I hope you guys enjoy the battle upcoming. But I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. Have yourselves a beautiful day, and enjoy the video.